All right, well, welcome to PTC. So one of the things I've been spending a lot of time on in the last 3 years is really working on how do we manage the edge computing, how we're going to start to extend our connectivity from our big hyperscalers and our core data centers back out to those edge data centers and the far edge data centers. And a far edge data center is that implementation that you're starting to hear from the Vapor IOs and the micro data center companies and even the tower companies that are going to be these small implementations right out on the edge. And why am I so involved in this and why do I care about it? So in my history, I've been building big networks that data has been super critical. Whether when I started my career doing a lot of networking at Charles Schwab or PayPal or GoDaddy, all of that time we thought how important the data was, so we build these huge, robust networks. And you know what? Times haven't changed. While we're going to see a lot of sensor data and all of that come in, that data that we have is really the gold. And if you don't believe me, go look at how much data mining companies like Facebook are doing, the social media companies are doing to be able to come back and give you a better experience. And while some people get caught up in the whole idea that it's moving down and privacy issues and stuff, it really is an interactive experience for us. And it's in its raw form, there's very little value in data. How many people have big data banks or have done anything with big data or have done data mining before? It's difficult and it's hard. And just like molding gold, it takes an expert to be able to understand what you're going to do with that data and how you're going to make that data valuable. But companies are spilling literally billions of dollars doing that today. But as network operators, it's our responsibility to make sure that we can take that data back and forth in a secure manner that's efficient and can help them actually data mine that and get some value out of it. And there we go. Okay, so as I was mentioning with AI and IoT, and it was perfect following the previous speaker about 5G and everything, AI is going to transform our world. And we're going to have this new tech that's just going to meet the needs of the individual. So that one-size-fits-all data that we're all used to and everybody has to conform to it is no longer going to be the norm. Because of all that data mining that's going on, they know what you want. They know how you want to live. How many people, even when you probably first registered for PTC, started getting advertisements for Hawaii? Places to go, things to do, right? Because there's big money in that. That's the gold that has now become data for us. And if you look at it, I mean, AI, IoT, machine learning, they're going to become more of an extended part of our lifestyle. So we typically think of the fact that, well, I can opt out of things. But there's going to be a day, every time you walk into a grocery store, every time you scan something, every time you walk into your house, you're going to start having data collected on you. And so to be able to manage that. Now, what the key is how do we take all that data and we start delivering it back to those cores and hyperscalers and then back out to the edge. And I'm going to go through some examples of why it's super important. And then, of course, all that data collected at the edge has to have that connectivity, as we heard about, that goes back to those areas that they can actually collect the big data. And why can't you do that closer to the edge? For two reasons. One, it's extremely expensive. Between security, big data farms, between the ability to actually do anything with it and do the analytics with it and be able to manage that, it's way too expensive to put that out there in a 9-rack container that's going to sit out at the far edge. And even at the tethered data center, sometimes it gets too expensive. And so the critical piece of that, which I've been doing a lot, and you can go look, I've written a couple white papers on this, and there's a couple of Guerrilla guides. It's a little bit of self-promotion, just to get over it. But you guys are supposed to laugh at that. Maybe I delivered that too fast. Yeah. But the key out there is really understanding what we're going to do and where we're going to make the right decisions with our data. And so let's talk about smart cities, visual AI, and safety. So smart cities are already going to be, they're here already. And so I'm fortunate to live in Denver, where we're one of the top 5 smart cities in the US, and we do a ton of work with the city of Denver. They're actually a customer of ours. We've done a lot of work with delivering their data. And one of the things that was fortunate with them was the fact that they have just a boatload of fiber assets in every single manhole. And guess what? Some of it runs right next to our data centers. So we were able to connect to them, take all their data now, and they can put it into their compute, and can do that right there. So now we're taking that data. And on the reverse side now, they can make decisions and send that data back out to the edge where things are happening, whether it's controlling signals for lights, whether it's controlling water, which is a critical resource for us. In Hawaii, you might take water for granted. It comes out of the sky. It's one of those things that's really amazing. But if you go to certain cities like California, the issues they've had and stuff, water is a critical resource. And so nowadays you can start to manage that. How much water flow? I don't know about you guys, but in Denver, where we have a lot of water restrictions, because while it looks green and beautiful and we get a lot of snow during the summertime, we don't get a lot of water. And so there's a lot of water restrictions, and you drive in, it's raining like crazy, and you see sprinklers going on at parks. And you're like, man, you could have saved a lot of money right there, and a lot of a precious resource we'll never replace. So that's part of it. And then the one that gets me every day is healthcare. There is a ton of new devices coming out in healthcare. So one of my favorites, there's actually a podcast out there, and you can go look at, there's a smart watch that will actually detect SUDEP in a person. And if you don't know what SUDEP is, it's an epileptic seizure that actually causes you to stop breathing. And if you remember the young Disney actor about 3 months ago, and his name escapes me right now, he died in his sleep because of SUDEP. And so over 50,000 children a year die in their sleep because of SUDEP. And we don't track it, we don't manage it. But now we can. So now we have the technology. But if we don't deliver that alert back to the mom or the parent, all of that technology is wasted. And that's where the critical piece is. So for instance, in this example that they have, and there's they start off with a use case of 24 parents volunteered to do this. And one mother actually had a child who came down, stopped breathing in her sleep, and her phone alerted her to go nudge her child, and she nudged her child and woke her child up. Her child was already turning blue within 3 minutes, already starting to have issues. She nudged her, woke her up, saved her child's life. That's the type of stuff that really makes the work and effort we've been doing for years a very noble cause. And so while people get caught up in smart cities and autonomous vehicles, and why? Because there's a lot of money in there, the ability to take that data, make a quick analytic decision, and then either alert somebody or do something with it is where the gold is in my heart. I mean, because that's saving people's lives, just not their livelihood. And then also, health. We as a company, we have over 400 healthcare agents, 400 healthcare folks in our data centers. So we're really big on healthcare, and we do a lot of work with them on delivering out to their clinics, delivering this data back. So when you can walk into a clinic and you want to look at maybe your scans of your liver or your kidney and find out things, the data's instantaneous. You're not waiting weeks anymore. You're not waiting for them to go pull up films. So now we can take that data and deliver it back. But more importantly, what they can do with that data now is they take that data in, they can do big data analytics, and within minutes, you can now get a diagnosis based on thousands of examples of that same rare instance that you may have in one of your internal organs. That's where I start to see that the gold comes in. And guess what? Healthcare makes a lot of money, and they do a lot with that. So for them, a competitive edge is to go out there and say, hey, you know what? We can deliver these services to you today, so walk into our clinic, because within a matter of minutes, we can do that. And then autonomous vehicles, we talked about that. I get into public transport. So if you're unfamiliar, all of our trains and railways and stuff are using visual AI now. So one of the good examples that we use, that customer of ours, they actually have gone through and built their own mini towers along the railways. And so they actually can scan the rail cars as they come by. They have 3 cameras on them, so they can scan the top, the middle, and the bottom. And they have found that they're over 300% more accurate at finding defects in that car and already communicating back to the next rail station where it's going to stop, to be able to pull that car off the line, repair it, and send the train on its way. So now you're talking from a matter of sometimes that car could take a week to repair. They're able to have the parts there and do it within a matter of hours, and then put it on the very next train. And why is that important to us? Because then you get your, whatever you ordered online comes to you that much faster. And that's important to us. But they're using visual AI to do it. So that data, so what's important with that data again is the fact that they're capturing this, they're sending it back to their big data collection, it's sitting there and identifying a defect, and then it's communicating back to the next train station that, hey, when this car comes in, pull car 37 off, it's got a defect that's going to cause a problem later, and they can make a repair on it. Big money is involved in that, because though every hour that car sits there at a train station not moving, those train companies that are actually delivering it, whether it's PG&E, any of those, or Southern Pacific or any of those, they actually pay money, because it's their responsibility. So that's one of the other things that happens. So while we get into autonomous vehicles, I always think transport's more important to me, because I like to drive. So while I want a car maybe to drive for me if I get really tired, I like the ability to drive. And then the last one is, of course, you're hearing a lot about it, gaming, retail, virtual reality. So another large customer of ours that I've been doing a lot of work with that has actually moved into, from the East Coast, they moved, and we did a whole white paper on it, and you can read about it, MLB. So they moved part of their division into our data center in Denver. Why? Because they were doing all their gaming for folks that are doing either fantasy or online gaming or any of those things with baseball was all being handled out of the East Coast. And what kills a great application, or in a gaming instance, what can actually get you killed if you're a gamer? Latency, right? So being able to deliver that data. So they moved into ours. They took a lot of connectivity from us, thank God, and they paid us good money for colo. So we always like that. But it came down to the same thing. They wanted a lower latency solution, and they had to get out close to their customers. So where the edge play comes in, that's what's really important. And then the ability to take that data back and forth. So you can read through the slides. I won't go through them too much. But data's like gold. It's precious. We've got to move it quick and fast. We need to do things with it. AIT and 5G are going to change the world. You heard it earlier. You heard it now. Delivering mission-critical and life-saving services to the edge is going to change the world. And then compute, and then, of course, access to all those services. But the one thing that I want you to take away today, and as part of this day, networks are now considered as essential as power. You walk out of here, you walk anywhere you will, you're going to check your phone, you're going to check your network. And that data is just as essential as having power and lights on. In fact, I would be fine if the lights went down as long as the network stayed up, because I could check and I could use a flashlight on my phone. That's it. And lastly, it's as I talked about, it can mean life or death, and it can mean your livelihoods or a small business livelihood too. That's it. Any questions? Nope? Good, because I don't want to answer any.